Welcome to That's So Clutch, an automotive podcast that bridges the gap between car industry experts and those who are not. Hello everyone, welcome back to That's So Clutch. I'm Alini Ferreira, your host, and today I'm joined with Mark Bond from First Texas Honda. You're a tire specialist. You have been in the industry for 20 years now. You started off in a tire shop.
Yeah.
As a temporary position.
Basically, yeah. I thought it was going to be a 6-month job, and here I am 20 years later.
Well, I'm sure it's a passion now, or else you wouldn't be in it. You also got to go to Michelin North America twice to further your knowledge through their performance driving school. And so that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that was cool because it was a contest, and I'm like, I want to go there. I want to learn more. And they showed performance in many levels, whether that be daily driving all the way up to taking Mustangs around a track. It was very enlightening both times.
I had no idea there was that much opportunity in the world of tires, like as a career. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So what is a tire specialist?
Great question. So tire specialist, what I'm doing is you bring your car onto the service drive, and I'm going to be one of the first people you see. I'm going to check your tires, see how they're doing. Mainly I'm looking at your tread depth, I'm looking at your age and the size to make sure those are all good. Because if any of those aren't working cohesively, then we might have some issues down the line. And then I'll have a quick conversation with you, see, kind of see what's going on, and then we just take it from there. So the goal is to give you more information about your car so you make the best decision for you and your vehicle.
Okay. So I know this is a loaded question, but how important is tire maintenance?
See, this is... And doing this 20 years, it is one of the things I preach about.
Yeah.
You need to maintain your tires. If you don't maintain your tires, they will not maintain you. So all I can say is don't be like that one infomercial. Don't set it and forget it. That's all. You need to do rotations. You need to do alignments. Because if you don't, you're going to be very unhappy with how your tires wear.
So what are the best practices in keeping them, other than like tire alignments and things like that?
Rotations. I cannot preach that enough. Rotations, especially with oil change intervals going so far these days. People are bringing their cars in a lot less often. So when I started the industry, 2003, 2004, every 5,000 to 7,000 miles, because oil changes were, for the most part, every 3,000 to 6,000 miles. But now we're pushing 7, 10, even beyond that 1,000 miles. So you need to rotate every oil change, and if you do that, it gives the tires a chance to rest. So I know Cody had mentioned this on his first one. Those front tires, they're doing all the steering, they're doing all the weight carrying of that engine in the front. But your rears, for the most part, they're just sitting there hanging out, doing their thing. So, just like if you work out a lot, you need to rest at least one day, your tires need to rest as well. So if you rotate them, you'll be able to get the most life and the most performance out of any set of tires.
So how does that work for all-wheel drive vehicles?
Yep. Another fantastic one. So all-wheel drives do tend to put more of a strain because you're never rotating off a true drive axle because your front's pulling, your rear's pushing. So you'll get a little less mileage out of them. But again, rotates, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, whatever you have, move them at minimum front to back. There is a proper rotation pattern that you can look up, which if we have another episode, I can go over all those finite details.
Which we will.
But as long as you're moving front to back at the bare minimum, that's the name of the game.
So what is the difference between tire rotation and alignment? Because to me, that just sounds like the same thing.
Yeah, no, and that is confused, again, from day one to up till now. So your rotation is, I'm physically taking that wheel off of, say, your left front, moving it to the left rear or the right rear, wherever's applicable. The alignment is on the vehicle suspension. So I want to make sure that when you're driving straight, that suspension is pointed straight. So at the same time, you can have a straight steering wheel, but your tires are doing this, what I call duck walking.
Yeah.
So it'll drive straight for days, but you'll see edge wear going on because it's basically scraping along, and that can also affect your fuel mileage because now the car wants to go straight, but if it's doing this or it's doing this, then that's going to put more resistance. So less tire wear, less potential fuel mileage. So that's why I personally, in my experience, recommend alignment anytime you do 2 or more tires and or every 10 to 15,000 miles. Because I don't care if you're driving in Austin, Texas, you're driving in Boston, Massachusetts, or you're out in LA. The roads aren't the greatest.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that all those road imperfections that your suspension is soaking up and handling, that we give it a good reset on a consistent and steady basis.
Okay. So Another thing I have a question about, and this is something I struggle with a lot, is how often should you get your tire pressure checked?
At least once a month. Now,
really?
I will say, and I will freely admit, as a tire guy, I'm not the best at checking my own air pressure. I will admit that. But your air pressure should be checked when it's cold. And I don't mean cold outside temperatures, but the vehicle itself is cold. And typically that's going to be first thing in the morning. You want to measure them, or after the car's been sitting for at least 4 hours. Because if you drive to work and you immediately check that air pressure, it's going to be higher because physics, air pressure increases as heat increases. But if I measure when it's cold, that's going to give me the proper pressure. So therefore, anything that happens, if it goes up a little bit, you're going to be fine. So always cold air pressure, and you're going to find that if you open up your driver's door, there'll be a white placard about this big.
Yeah.
And it's going to show you, for this option and this tire size, this is the recommended pressure front and rear, because some vehicles, your Mercedes of the world, your performance vehicles are going to have either much higher pressures than you'd imagine. So 33 to 35 is not the standard, or they might have staggered air pressures, depending. You might have a 20-inch wheel in the back and an 18 in the front, different widths, different load carrying capacity. So you got to adjust the air pressure for those.
Yeah.
And not to get too detailed, it's also on heavy duty trucks. If you do a rotation, typically those are staggered because a big 2500 is designed to carry weight. So you might have 80 PSI in the rear recommended, but 65 in the front. Now you go in, get your proper rotation done. If the air pressures aren't reset, you leave there, and that front's going to feel really, really tight, and it's going to jar over bumps. And that's why you got to readjust the air pressures to get that load carrying for the back and keep the ride quality in the front. So yes, air pressure is a huge thing. I'll leave you with, if you ever watch a NASCAR race, an F1 race, they'll talk about air pressure in half-pound increments. Oh, went into the pits. They took half pound out of the left rear. Now, I'm not saying we're racing NASCAR here, but it is that specific where it can change a half a pound, can gain or lose track position in a 500-mile race.
Wait, so why is it important to have your pressure checked?
Because if it's too low, you run the risk of a blowout. Because if I run too low a pressure, the tire is going to heat up. And then if it's too high of a pressure, you're going to end up on an opposite way of a blowout, but also a lot less tire wear. So as the pressure increases, the tire should be nice and flat. But when you go over pressure, it ends up crowning. So the center of the tire is going to wear out way prematurely, as opposed to the on the edges that will still have tread. And the opposite would be true if you ran too low a pressure. You're going to have a lot of wear on the outside edge, but almost nothing on the inside. So you want to maintain that contact patch. So that's why the proper air pressure for the proper vehicle is going to give you the proper contact patch for the proper traction, because in a best case scenario, your car's aligned, your tires have been rotated, your air pressure's proper. You only have the size of a playing card of actual tire hitting the road at any one moment. So you want to be able to maximize that playing card as much as you possibly can. So air pressure, as you're probably seeing and hearing, is, I don't want to say a passion, but I know it's extremely important.
Would you say that's the most important out of everything?
Here we go. I don't want to say most important, but it is, I would put it easily in the top three, probably top two, outside of having the correct tire size.
Okay.
So I put tire size and air pressure as a 1-2.
So you said that tire alignment affects the fuel economy a little bit, right?
It can.
So does tire pressure affect the fuel economy?
Yes. So in the same nature, so we're running low pressure. So your vehicle is scheduled for 32 pounds, but you're running 20 pounds in there. Now, because that tire is basically deformed, flatter and wider, there's more rolling resistance. So that's why you see a lot of guys in the off-road community will run lower air pressure to get that wider contact patch so they can climb over that rock, get over that sand dune, whatever it may be. So you have more rolling resistance. Now the car has to work over that resistance to go the normal speed. So it's like running, I have 2 shoes on right now, but if I run with 1 shoe, I can still run, but it's going to take my body a lot more effort to get there.
Yeah.
And the opposite is true. You run too higher pressure. Now you've lost that ideal contact patch, and now you're going to get improved fuel economy because there's less rolling resistance, because instead of having the whole optimal tire patch, now you're only getting this much of the tire on the ground. And I've seen and heard of people who will run these unbelievably high air pressures so they can, what ultra milers, so they can get the most fuel mileage. But you look at those wear patterns, and you're typically going to see the center rib completely wiped before the rest of the tire.
So if your tires are in need of a replacement, do you have to replace all 4?
You're just firing off with the fantastic questions.
Well, like
I love it.
It can get pretty pricey.
It can definitely get pricey. So in an ideal world, yeah, we're doing all 4. But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world.
Yeah.
Now, everything is situational. If you can do 4 tires, absolutely, you want them to be the same size, style, type, construction, brand, all of that. Mm-hmm. But if you can only do 2, and I've been trying myself preaching this since I learned about it in probably 06, 07, that you always want your best tires in the rear. And that is mainly for handling. And I've been fighting this. Most of the vehicles these days are front-wheel drive biased. And people always say, put the new ones in front, new ones on the front, which, yes, you will gain traction in the front. But and this is when you have to do too, if you do that, now I have all my weight, all my traction in the front. Now, in Central Texas, when it rains a lot.
Yep.
So now I get into a situation where it's raining, and I'm going around a corner, and I have no tread on my rear, and I'm now fishtailing. And I learned this going to that Michelin performance seminar. Yeah. They gave us identical vehicles. One had new tires on the front and half worn on the rear, and then the other car had the opposite, and it was a Ford Fusion, normal front-wheel drive vehicle. Mm-hmm. Knowing I was going to spin out, when I had the new tires on the front, all I do is I was going, 35, 40 miles around on this track. I felt the rear kind of vibrate on me, and as a consumer, I'd be like, okay, what balance, what's going on?
Yeah.
Next thing I know, back end spins out on me. Get into the other car that has the new tires on the back and the half worn on the front. And what I was able to do, get around almost that same point, I got a response from the steering wheel that was a vibration / I almost felt the hydroplaning. So I backed off on the gas, slowed down, made it safely around the track. So the point is, you get more feedback because those front tires, you're going to feel it right away. Whereas if the worn tires are on the back, you don't feel that loss of traction until it's too late.
Yeah.
So that's why anytime you do 2 tires, you always put those new ones in the back.
In the back, yeah.
So that's my overall kind of thing of 4 is ideal if it's on the cards for you. If not, and you have to do a pair, put them always on the rear. Mm-hmm. And in every situation, there are differences, but that would be kind of an overall high-level view.
So would you say that's one of the common mistakes? People always put it in, or try to put it in the front?
Always put them in the front. And it's unfortunate, I think, from, when cars were made up until, and we went to the early 2000s. So we have basically 40 to 50 plus years of education that we need to unlearn. And we're less than 20 years into it. So I don't know if it's going to happen this year. It may not be till 2040. It may never change. But if I can have a little bit of effect on somebody learning that I always put the best tires in the rear, then I'm doing what I'm meant to do.
Keeping people safe, for sure.
That is my goal. I want to keep people safe and make sure you get good tires.
Yeah. So is it going to differ for electric vehicles?
Yes.
Like, do EVs need specific tires?
Yes, and that is a great topic, and I love that this series has kind of always had an EV theme, not on purpose, but just that's where the industry is going right now.
For sure.
That's what we're working with. So myself, I'm educating myself. Just like EVs, the EV tires are changing and being updated every day because all the manufacturers are kind of be like, okay, we really need to start paying attention to this right now.
Yeah.
So they're trying, but you got a lot of instantaneous torque. You got heavy vehicles.
Yeah.
I did a little research and found out that the lightest EV on sale in America is a shade under 4,000 pounds. The heaviest one, now this is what, I had to read this article like 4 times, is 10,000 pounds. Oh, now to put that into perspective, that is a Ford F550. So think of a giant commercial like dump truck.
Yep.
That is the weight of some of these vehicles, and the majority of the heaviest were somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 pounds, which is F250, F350, lean on an F450 size.
Yeah.
So
that battery's heavy.
They are heavy. It is low in the vehicle, so you have the center of gravity is now changed. So
I didn't even think about that.
Yes, you have a much lower center of gravity, so they're going to handle amazingly. But now you're putting that weight, and most of them now are all-wheel drive because they'll have a front motor and a rear motor. So you not only get that instantaneous torque on the front of the rear wheels, you're getting it on all 4 of these wheels. So what I mean, granted, Honda, we don't have any EVs yet. We will in about a year or two with the Prologue. But yeah, they're increasing load indexes. They're changing tread designs, sometimes even going back to some older tread designs to see, hey, this didn't work in this situation, but maybe we can apply this to EVs and see how it works.
So tread designs, I thought it was always just like looks. And I know that's so stupid to say, but like there are people like that that are thinking just like me. I know there is. Maybe not, but I think it is solid.
I've had customers, because their tire didn't have raised white letters, refuse to buy the tire. So looks is definitely a huge thing that comes into it. The name and brand Michelin is great at putting nice aesthetics on the sidewall. Goodyear's great at creating what I call a pretty side and an ugly side. So when myself or somebody else is installing the tires, you always put the pretty side out. So aesthetics is a huge thing that, so you're not wrong in that. But the tread designs, they want to make sure that they're low noise, low rolling resistance. So they're working with different rubber compounds, because you need that. We go back to like the air pressure thing. The amount of rolling resistance is going to affect your EV range. Sizes, we're getting these really weird sizes that are starting to normalize. But like a BMW i3, when those things first came out, it was like a bike tire. It was a 145, like 70-19, which in layman's terms,
it's like
really skinny. Like, think of spare tires skinny, on a very tall wheel.
Yeah.
Because early on, they said, okay, we need narrow and we need a big wheel for the rolling resistance. Yeah. And as things have progressed, it's still bigger wheels, but now focusing more on what's the tread compound, how can I get more, load carrying out of this? There's a lot that goes into it, and I'm learning every day. The manufacturers are learning every day. So what is the newest and greatest thing right now, just like a cell phone, is probably going to be different in 6 months. So it is an area that I am getting more into. And hopefully in a year or two, 5 years, that we're not talking about EV-specific tires. We're just talking about tires now, because everything is designed for an EV. Again, so that's where the whole industry is moving right now.
For sure. So what is the difference between, this is going to be funny, all-season tires and winter tires?
And I'm going to throw one at you. There's even a new category.
There's a new category?
There's a new category in the past 2 years called all-weather.
What?
Yes, it gets... Tires can get really confusing really quick.
Yeah, so especially for someone who's just driving a car, not worrying about any of that.
And to answer your first question, all season is just that. It's a tire designed for all 4 seasons. Snow, rain, sleet, hot, cold, the whole 9 yards. If you go with a specific winter tire, kind of like myself, that's a specialist thing. It's designed for cold, anything 40 degrees and below. You may look at an all-season tire and be like, oh, yeah, that'll be fine. But kind of going back to the EVs, it's in the tread compounds and then sipes, which are the little, as I got referred, this is the best way I've ever heard it told to me, and this is going back to a friend of mine I worked with, Chris. They're like Pac-Man. The more sipes, they're the little slits in the tire, the more of those you have, the more traction you have, because what they do is they open up and they bite they bite the road, they bite the snow. So if you look at an all-season tire and a snow tire, you're going to see the snow tire has more of those Pac-Man on there to get more traction. And also the rubber compound itself is designed to be softer, so it stays pliable at lower temperatures, because a regular tire will become stiffer at lower temperatures, so therefore less responsive. So it's even recommended if you're living in an area that doesn't necessarily get snow, but consistently gets below 40 degrees, you're going to want to put a set of winter tires on as opposed to running all seasons, because you'll get better overall performance in those slushy, snowy, or cold days.
Yeah.
And to quickly hit on, all-weather tires have become a thing because people now want, consumers want all-season tires, but I want snow tires, but I can't afford both. So companies, Michelin, Hankook, are the two I know of offhand. Goodyear offers it, where to be a snow tire, you have this little mountain with a snowflake on it, which is basically a severe snow rating. So they developed all-season tires that are certified to have that 3-peak mountain snowflake on the mountain logo, so you get all-season capabilities. It's not a true snow tire, but it's going to give you...
It's like a happy medium.
Correct. Okay. So Michelin's got the Cross Climate 2, Goodyear has their Assurance Weather Ready, and then Hankook has their Kinergy 4S. Those are 3 I can think of off the top of my head that have developed a tire for those situations. And it's a great sell. I never thought when I moved down here that I'd be promoting these, but after our past couple winters, I've actually sold a couple sets based on that fact of, hey, it's going to get cold down here.
Yeah.
If you want that added.
And it's been happening every year so far, so we might as well expect it.
Correct. So that is a overall explanation with a little bonus information for you.
So trailing back real quick to like looks, and also because you talked about size, does size actually matter for performance or safety?
Yes. So that is one of the key things I look for when a car comes on the drive, is to make sure the correct size is on there. So just like air pressure, too small is definitely worse than too large. Because if you go to, so say your car, I'll pull up a Honda Civic. Comes a 205, 55, 16. Probably one of the world's top 5 sizes. But if I see it come in, it's got a 205, 50, 16. So that means that the width is still correct, but now the sidewall, instead of being 55% of the width, is now 50%. So I've decreased the overall height. Number one, I'm decreasing load carrying capacity. So even at that tire's max air pressure, I cannot properly hold the weight of that vehicle up. And now my speedometer is going to be off. My odometer is going to be off. And if you have any of those fun electronic braking aids that we all have going on and all those other stuff, you may be affecting those as well.
So that's why like people who have like lifted Jeeps don't actually know how fast they're going.
Right, or you'll see a bunch of lights on the dash because the car has no idea what's going on. No idea what's going on. And on the same flip, if you go too large, now I'm running into clearance issues. So I'm not saying, the Jeeps, they're their own kind of separate side.
They're a whole nother.
But let's say I see a Civic comes in and it has, for example, it has a CRV tire on it. It may work, but it is not at all going to be good for the car because or safe because you can run into clearance issues. Now I run into fuel economy issues. Now I run into braking issues. So that's why always, always, always stay with your factory size if at all possible. And if you have questions about size or it's a weird situation, reach out to me. I can help you make the right decision now because I worked in the aftermarket for long enough. But always original equipment all day, every day. Keep the size that's listed on your placard.
Yeah. So if someone is going in to buy a tire, is there really a big difference between budget or performance tires?
So you're thinking more like...
for just an everyday vehicle. Like if someone's just going in and by performance, I mean just like the more expensive one, not like a race car.
Okay,
F1.
So more like a name brand, like a Michelin Goodyear.
Yeah, like is there more benefits to getting one that's a little more expensive?
At the end of the day, yes. You get what you pay for in tires because the Goodyears, Michelins, Bridgestones of the world, they have those budgets. They're those big names that have been around for hundreds of years for a reason. They know what they're doing. They've had the R&D. Again, going to Michelin, I saw that they probably threw away more tires than I feel like they actually sell.
Really?
They have a specific Corvette program that only tests Corvette tires. So,
wow.
Yeah. So those guys spend so much in R&D in their tread compounds, in customer feedback, seeing what works, what doesn't. So if it's in the budget on the cards, go with the upper middle or the high end because you're going to spend less per mile. And it's usually not a huge jump because you're looking an entry-level tire for any vehicle, $500 to $700. Mid-grade
per tire?
Total overall. Great.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
So these are four tire quotes. You go mid-grade, now you're probably in that 8 to 9-ish area. Now I'm going premium. I'm starting upper 9s, easily exceeding 1,000. And you could probably go 15 to 2 if you're going all out or you have a very high-end vehicle. So when you look at the rubber is literally what hits the road. And I have a lot of consumers that will look at the mid-grade that's $850 or $900, but then they see the Goodyear or the Michelin or whichever brand is out for $1,200, $1,300, $1,100, and they're like, oh, okay, well that one's going to last longer. And I preach cost per mile. You don't want to be in the shop, changing your tires twice in 80,000 miles, twice in 100,000 miles. If I can sell you or educate you on a 65 to 85,000 mile tire that will give you more time on the road, a better ride, better traction, and it's only another $100, $200 overall. As they say, price is forgotten. Price is forgotten like when quality is remembered. So you're not going to remember that you paid an extra $200 for that Goodyear 85,000, that Michelin Cross Climate. You're going to be like, wow, these are really good. I had to slow down and my tire stopped on me. So that's why I'm a preacher of whenever you can, spend the extra, get as much life as you can, doing those rotates, doing your alignments, and you and your car will love you forever.
So what if someone is like really on a tight budget? What should they keep in mind when purchasing a tire?
Another great question.
Like, what if they're just trying to be safe?
Yep.
You know,
Yeah,
like,
and that absolutely happens, and that's why I always say there's no bad tire out there. It's a matter of the right tire for the right situation. Every tire is going to be great, but I would say you look at. I'm going to go back to siping. You have straight sipes, which are less expensive to produce, but then when they're new, they tend to slide past each other. So you can get a lot of what they call tread squirm. You have zigzag sipes, which literally look like a zigzag. Those are going to interlock and give you better stability and tend to have better traction. And I've seen that in the past probably 10 years trickling down to those mid-grade and some of the entry-level tires. So if you look at nothing else, look for the zigzag sipes. And if you're comparing brand X to brand Y, one has straight sipes, one has the zigzag sipes, go with the zigzag sipes. Because there are hundreds upon hundreds of off-brands out there. And I'll finish with, if you're tight budget and you have completely bald tires, just getting something on there is better than nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, look at the sipes. I would say that's the biggest way to tell the difference.
Go zigzag.
Go zigzag.
So my last question isn't really automotive related, but it can be if you want to. It's, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be? So
I've been thinking about this one. It's hard because in my 39 years on this earth, I've learned a lot. And what I really feel like, it's, don't be afraid to learn from others and ask for help. And to this day, I'll tell you, I'm still trying to teach myself that, because
it's hard.
Born and raised in New England, I can be very stubborn at times. So it's hard.
I'm from Boston, so I get that.
Okay, so you know exactly, Southern New Hampshire. So it's hard for me to ask for help, and it's hard for me to learn from others, and it's also sometimes hard for me to see beyond a black and white situation.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's taking a step back, taking a breath, and looking and be like, okay, this person's trying to help me, or you know what, this situation isn't exactly as it seems. Let me reevaluate and come to a better conclusion or a different conclusion. So just kind of trying to take it all in and make sure that whatever action I'm about to do is the proper action for the situation.
Yeah.
And if I need help, ask for help. Yeah. Know that's there.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining. This was so informational, and I think people will actually start to realize how important tires are, and it's not just like a thing you can leave aside, like the forgotten stepchild.
Yes, and sometimes it can feel like that when I'm talking tires to a customer, you know. But like literally, if you have no tires, you literally are going nowhere fast.
Yeah, literally. But thank you so much. This is awesome.
I loved it.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, if you have any questions about the automotive industry, please leave them down below. As always, goodbye.